Okay, so what you're gonna do is, here you go, you're gonna go on to the King Crimson, gonna go down here in the description, hit more, and then 1. You're either gonna hit library, right here, that's gonna take you to my Patreon with the video. That's gonna be completely uncensored, have all the sound for the beginning to end. So you can either choose option 1, go to the library, choose option 2, you're going to click on this link here, and that is going to take you to my Google Drive. Just right click on that, hit download. That's going to download to your computer, and then you're going to come back to the video, and the video is going to give you a 3, 2, 1. Then you hit the file, open the file, pause it, and basically listen to it as I am listening to it. Okay? Alright guys, enjoy. This music had a huge impact on me. Around the same time, the same summer as Alison Krauss. So it's going to be an interesting juxtaposition from Alison Krauss to this music, which is King Crimson. The summer of 93. Heard Alison Krauss very early in the summer. Loved that. Later in the summer, right around the same time that David Bowie, I said Rykodisc reissued a lot of their discography on cassette. And King Crimson was one of the other ones, part of Rykodisc did also. So from their first album up to Starless and Bible Black, came out and reissued on cassette. And just like David Bowie, I also started to go through the King Crimson catalog. So I'm going to play something. King Crimson, I had heard 21st Century Schizoid Man back in 1990 on my first day of music theory class at college. The professor brought in that too for us to do an ear analysis, or try to basically transcribe the opening riff melody. But I hadn't really delved into the rest of King Crimson. It definitely made an impact, but it wasn't immediate. And I had other friends at school that were always telling me about, I got to go listen to Red, you got to go listen to this, go listen to more King Crimson. At that time, I wasn't ready. I was still sort of digging into just, a mixture of classic rock and acoustic rock, and wasn't yet King Crimson ready. Anyway, summer of 1993, started to get into it again. This time I started with their second album, and which was Wake Up Poseidon, released May 15th, 1970. Reached number 4 in the UK. That's wild. We don't think of King Crimson as being a popular band, but in the UK they were known. They were understood. Composed by Peter Sinfield and Fripp. They lost Michael Giles, drummer, and Ian MacDonald, the mellotron, before Christmas 1969, but Michael Giles did help on the recording on some of the songs. So we had Robert Fripp on guitars and mellotron, Peter Sinfield on lyrics and production, Greg Lake on vocals, Michael Giles on drums, Peter Giles on bass guitar, Mel Collins on saxophones, and the rest of the album there was Keith Tippett on piano, but not on this particular track. So we are going to listen to, on Wake Up Poseidon, going to listen to the 2-part, which some people, there's some people who say this is a part 2 of 21st Century Schizoid Man. There's a lot of that first album in this second album, which I think, yeah, it's true. I mean, they sort of hit the spots. They have the very acoustic number, very light music, so they hit some of the same areas, but I think it's an evolution. They had new members, so I think it's great stuff to listen to regardless. So I'm going to go with Pictures of a City, and then it's going to go into 42nd at Treadmill. Let's go. All right, let me pause right there. It's about to go into pictures at, 42nd at Treadmill. I imagine it got even in 1960, 69. Can imagine it standing out as something that's, world crushing. But yeah, for me, as a beginning guitar player, learning, hearing that adeptness at the guitar, hearing the harmony of the lines, hearing the sort of just the virtuosity, and that, was fantastic. But obviously, that's one thing. King Crimson, if anything, is a dichotomy, or is a multi-sided effort of brilliance. It's never one thing. They are a great collection, and they're doing things that are very outside the box. Anyway, but also, very musical. They respect the music. So yeah, we're going to jump into, let me see, King Crimson. I mentioned all the tracks. Let's jump into the second portion of the song, which is 42nd at Treadmill. God, what is that sound when it all ends? Just sort of this cloud of all the reverb just exits the room. Yeah, I love that. That's one side of King Crimson where everyone knows, like, they're they're so good at the build up. They'll take as long as they want. That one was like over 2 minutes of just this slow build up, and that's an attention in music where it's similar to, more closer to probably classical music, where they can state a theme, and then walk away and then come back and do it a little bit different, then walk away and then come back, and they never really get to the punch, the climax. It could be 20 minutes into the song, and they're meandering all around it for all that time, and pop music is the opposite of that. Like, we'll give you one verse and then we're going to give you the hook, or we'll give you the hook right in the beginning, or we'll give you the hook. Everything is quick, instantaneous, fast, go right to the punch, give you the dessert first. King Crimson, they're so good at just delaying gratification, and you're like, what are they doing? When? Come on, now? No, it's never when you think it is. It's never, ever, ever when you want it to be. You're like, please, it's been a minute. Give it to me. And they just keep dragging it out. But that's a great, just for studying music and learning good habits. That's one of the best resources I think anyone could have, is sort of the idea of like hearing music, hearing a timing in music beyond how it feels in real time. There was a quick analogy of that. There's a teacher telling a student, to hold a note for an extra, whatever, 2 beats, an extra, hold it longer. It sounds like it's holding too long, but once you go and listen to it afterwards, it's a different timing, it's a different space you're listening to it in, and then it feels right. So a lot of times what we hear, in the moment, the timing, when it's, when to change, it's time to go. Obviously there's rules in playing with the people that you adjust to that, but in a time where, like, how long should I hold this note for, if you're in a solo, I think it teaches you a little bit to, not necessarily just trust your instincts, but just try to engage with it, how it might live out in space in a different time, not like how you're feeling right at the moment, and your anticipation to get to the next part and what's going to be said. Sometimes think a little bit more in like the long run, the songwriting, like how is this going to actually impact the song, for others, and if I listen to it afterwards. So sometimes how you hear things in the moment is not how it will be heard afterwards or down the road. So, and King Crimson, was a great teacher of that, because they did it in practice. And whether through they were experimenting with that themselves, or they were just, they already knew that they wanted to sort of elongate things and put them into a different time and space than was natural for a lot of different music. Anyway, King Crimson, so Wake Up Poseidon. Obviously, I went in a deep dive after hearing this album, went through all their other albums up to Starless and Bible Black. I've listened to stuff past that too. But that's the crux of their direct influence, their real strong influence. I like the voices and the musicians in that period the most, and the song styles. Some of the stuff with Fripp around that time. So he was interviewed around 1970, October 1970, by Sounds Magazine. And this Fripp said he learned a lot with the first King Crimson. We all learned a lot with that band, and possibly learned more about people than music. Events just proceeded around the band, and that the first band was somehow charmed, but it was a charm that wore off. It was blessed with something, a good fairy, if you like, but it was something intangible that wore off while we were making the second album in the June and July of last year. In the Times, 1970, the not so dear departed, one of the critiques of that, Fripp himself had been conducting auditions for singers, bassists, and drummers for weeks, and has found the experience thoroughly depressing. Most of the people have been so bad, either they can't play the music or they've been around for years and they're just hustling for the job with their eyes on the money. Poseidon was Greg Lake's King Crimson swan song, but he wasn't needed for the LP. Though the facts became a peculiar footnote in rock history, emerging talent Elton John was originally hired to sing on the sessions, before Fripp changed his mind. Elton had been booked to sing all the songs on Poseidon for £250 as a session singer, and Fripp wasn't familiar with his work. Mark Fenwick gave him a copy of Elton's first album, and he said his style didn't seem right for Crimson and the album was poor, so I canceled the sessions. Among those singers we auditioned were John Gaydon, one of our managers who had sung with the Band of Angels, and Roxy Music singer Brian Ferry. Both were among the best, although not suitable. So it's definitely been, you got the guitar and the horn harmonies, saxophones and the guitar doing, harmony parts or doing unison parts. But really what stands us out is the drums, because the drums, to me, he's soloing through this whole thing. The main structure is, it's a very controllable and very, the changes going to the 4 and the 5. But the drums, he's playing inside and outside through the whole thing. So, that's what I hear the drummer. He's just he's getting to play through this whole thing, and everyone else is just doing a very strict, So far, that's the beginning. I know it's going to get a little haywire here in a second. But for me, playing mostly a guitar player and, playing bass a little bit here and there, other string instruments, more or less. But for me, it was always, you always sort of search for what's not in your atmosphere, what are you missing? And for me, it was always the rhythm. It was the drums. That's always what I played off of. That's always what I was listening to. I would hear everything else. I could hear the chord structure, the tones of the piano, a keyboard, or the bass. I could hear what the bass is doing, but I wasn't listening to it intently. I wasn't reacting off of it as intently as I was the drums. The drums was always something where it was it has to go here. It has to go here. What's the drummer doing? Okay, it has to go here. It's with him, or it's reacting to him, or it's reacting with him, communicating. Anyway, for this one, right now the drums stand out, and I'm pretty sure they do probably the rest of the track. My first theory professor would say that music is similar to walking around the block. You leave the home, take a few turns, come back home again. With Crimson, I felt like they were taking the long way home, and the steps to open the front door would keep adding as you slowly crept up. They had everything from tearfully melancholic to all-out propulsive disturbances. Anyway, I'm going to end it with that. We'll do some more. Obviously, we're going to do some more King Crimson, and I want to do a show. I want some, interaction with some other people as far as what stuff they'd like to hear. But I want to do something that's sort of the outliers of King Crimson, the Gals, and Fripp, the Peter Sinfield, the McDonald's and Giles albums. So some of the other material around early Crimson, and look at some of that stuff in a sort of medley or marathon fashion. So that will definitely be down the road. We'll do some more King Crimson as a whole. So if you're interested in that, please stick around and give me some ideas, give me some thoughts about what you'd like. All right, we appreciate it. We're going to move on. We're going to jump into the next pool, and what's it going to be? So we've done David Bowie, the chameleon of rock. We've done Alison Krauss, bluegrass, new generation of bluegrass, and King Crimson, the grandfathers of progressive rock. Thanks for being here. I'm loving it. Hope you guys are enjoying it, and we will move on to the next one. Take care.